should firearm owners be able to use marijuana either recreationally or medically? That's what I'm going to talk about today as I give you a little bit of insight about where all this stems from, some of the dilemmas that are facing gun owners right now, and my opinion whether firearm owners should be able to use marijuana at all. And of course, I want to hear your opinion after the video, whatever you think about it and whatever side you may be on. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. Now, basically, since the beginning of time, hemp has actually been used to make paper and ropes and all kinds of materials, and it was seen as a really good thing. And it was used in medications, of course, for a long period of time. But it wasn't until 1910 when, Mexicans coming into the United States after the Mexican Revolution of 1910 actually showed Americans, hey, you can use this stuff recreationally as well. Now, it wasn't until the Great Depression when the paradigm shifted and people started looking at marijuana as a criminal activity as opposed to something that could be helpful. But they also use minorities in a way to kind of show that, this is what's associated with marijuana, and then of course after Prohibition, it really started to ramp up. You had movies like Reefer Madness, which kind of solidified this idea. And then, as far as gun owners, the Gun Control Act of 1968. Now, this adds that little pesky question on a 4473. And at the bottom, I think it's 11E, basically it says, are you an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substances, including marijuana? Now, problem is, if you answer yes, you're going to be denied. But also, you could look at it as, well, no, I'm not an unlawful user. Maybe I have a medical card, or maybe it's legalized in my state. So you could answer no, but the federal government sees that as lying, which could be 5 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. And there is one of the biggest issues on this entire subject, because you have 34 states that have decriminalized to some degree, whether medically, recreationally, or both, the use of marijuana, but yet the federal government still sees it as I think it's a class 1 or a tier 1 drug, so they set weed right alongside heroin and cocaine through the federal government's eyes. So no matter what your state says, on a federal level, it's still illegal to own a firearm, because if you answer that question, no matter if you're a lawful user of marijuana or not, and you own a firearm, they consider that lying. Even if they remove it from the 4473, you still have the ethics of it, right? Some people see it as, unethical to be a firearm owner. What if you, smoke a blunt and you get so high and then your perception is way off? But then you have the alcohol debate as well. If you drink alcohol, your gun rights are not at stake unless you, of course, conceal carry and you're getting drunk in a bar. But if you ask anybody if they get drunk or if they smoke a blunt, which one of these are more likely to hurt somebody while they're in that state of mind, most people that know are going to tell you that person that drunk is much more likely to hurt somebody either by getting behind the wheel or making a judgment call when their perception is not 100%, when their state of mind is not 100%. Marijuana, totally different. Somebody might kill a bag of Cheetos when they get high, but the chances of them doing something super violent on it are way less than that of alcohol. Now, fortunately, there have been some federal judges, I think in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, who have said it's unconstitutional for you as a gun owner to have your rights stripped away, even if you have a medical card or using it recreationally, legally in your own state. And I think that's the way it should be. Do I necessarily think somebody should be able to go out there and start smoking on the road and smoking in their car as they're driving and stuff? No, absolutely. I say keep it at home or wherever you're going to be at for the night and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of how I feel about that. But at the same time, these laws about people having to choose firearm ownership or the medical benefits from marijuana just need to be reworked 100%, and the federal government needs to get behind the states on doing so. Now, I don't ask the government for too much because we all know how that kind of works, but they at least need to rewrite the laws around marijuana, and that would be a big step in the right direction. And then, of course, removing it from the 4473 altogether. What about people that are in the military, that have PTSD? You gonna tell them because they, use medical marijuana that they can't be a firearm owner? People with seizures, people with, cancer, there's all kinds of treatments that marijuana is really useful for. What about people that are prescribed pain pills, that use them legitimately? Or people with anxiety where that is being treated and they're totally fine? I mean, where do we draw the line here? I'll say this. I don't think the line should be between alcohol and marijuana for sure, because alcohol is 100 times worse than marijuana ever has been or ever will be. And so my opinion, more states need to get on board, decriminalize marijuana altogether. Congress and the government overturn their stance on it and get past this outdated theory about marijuana being anything more than a super helpful plant in a lot of different uses and actually helps a lot of people. Unfortunately, people have to make these kind of decisions now, though, in order to be a firearm owner, and I don't think that's right at all. Of course, you got to use it responsibly. And I'm not against alcohol, by the way, but I am, to a certain extent, more against that than people using marijuana because I've seen the effects of both. And so while I do want those lines between marijuana and gun ownership to be dissipated, I really believe that should happen. That doesn't mean that Headshot saying, oh, that's just a pass for you to, smoke anytime you want and then, go out and carry your gun. Or you're at a shooting range and in between sessions, you're smoking a joint. I'm not saying that at all. You have to be responsible with it. That's going to add another responsibility to the list that gun owners already have. But if you have to make a split-second decision and use your gun in self-defense, a prosecutor will use that against you if you were stoned at the time you had to pull that gun. So these are just more decisions that you're going to have to make. I definitely side on the medical benefits of it for sure. I don't think anybody should have to make a medical decision with something that helps them or be a lawful owner of guns. I don't think that's right at all. And even recreationally, but again, I just think it should follow the same lines that we already have as far as alcohol. So, if you're actively drinking, you can't carry your firearm. If you're actively partaking in the devil's lettuce, you shouldn't be carrying your firearm. Now, of course, there's going to be circumstances where these lines are blurred. And so I can also see those as well. If you're, actively smoking, you're inside your house, you're not hurting anybody, somebody breaks into your home and you have to use that gun in self-defense, where should the law stand on that? Well, that person broke into your home, and to me, that's going to be lawful grounds for you to use your firearm no matter what you were doing, but every situation is different. And so one thing I'm not is I'm not a lawyer, and so I'm not giving any kind of legal advice here at all, but I will say that I believe that those lines should be dissipated, and as long as you're responsible, as long as you're not actively using it while you're carrying your firearms or handling them in any way, and especially if you're using them in a medical sense, nobody should be restricted from firearm ownership because they are using something with a medical benefit. And so that's my opinion, but I want to hear from y'all. Do you think that firearm owners should be able to use marijuana in any capacity, maybe no capacity? Whether you agree or totally disagree, let me know down in the comments below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. You could also join us on Patreon or join the channel right here and never have to leave YouTube. Big thanks to you guys for watching. See you in the next one, and as always, hold 'em down.